Hello, welcome. So today I'm going to talk about targets, why they matter and how they can shape your season. This is the point of the year where training either gains direction or quietly drifts. Not because motivation disappears, but because that context does. When there is no clear target, sessions start to feel interchangeable. Recovery becomes reactive, consistency drops, not because the effort is lacking, but because effort has no reference point. For riders training where I am, right now, it's the Northern Hemisphere, it's December. This is the most obvious time of year for this. Through winter, it's cold, it's wet, it's dark. Races from last summer feel like they happened to somebody else, you know. Events next season, next year feel far enough away to ignore. That stretched and perceived time is where focus erodes and training almost drifts into accumulation for the sake of it. Targets help to shorten that distance. They turn those abstract future events into reference points that will guide your daily decisions around volume, intensity, and when to recover. Having a target does not predict an outcome. Its role is to impose structure at a time when external reinforcement is limited. So before you pick your targets, all right, before choosing races or filling in a calendar, it's worth pausing briefly. What are you actually aiming toward next season? Not in terms of a single result, but in terms of racing direction. Is it going to be early season or late season? One discipline or several? Like racing every week or just making those selective appearances? In many cases, the available events narrow those choices. An early championship, a limited calendar, or a cluster of races in one discipline all at one point. These will often define the shape of the season before any training decisions are made. So this is not poor planning, it is reality. Good planning responds to that constraint rather than ignoring it. Being clear on this early prevents selecting races reactively and trying to force preparation to fit afterwards. You might have seen, you've been on Instagram, been on the BC calendar, event organisers are starting to promote next year's events. The question is, what do you do with that information? One step that carries a real disproportionate impact is visibility. So I suggest to my riders having a physical wall planner, a big A1 size that you grab off Amazon, £5-6, put it somewhere you can see it every day. As events are confirmed, write them down. That could be races, training blocks, recovery weeks, travel, camps, any family commitments. Stick them on that big wall planner, because unlike digital calendars, this information is a lot more visible rather than sort of just accessed selectively. So many riders use Training Peaks or other training platforms, but very little of that is visible unless you actively go looking for it. So some riders I coach take this even further with a weekly planner on the fridge. Magnetic dry weight marker nearby. Every Sunday they write down the week. So sessions, life appointments, reminders, little notes, and then each night they tick it off. So every morning when they open the fridge for the overnight oats, there it is, they can see it, the plan is staring back at you. And yes, that little small tick gives you that accountability, that little dopamine hit, especially during winter, that could be lacking. So pick your little target. This matters because winter training rarely provides immediate feedback. Progress is slower, it's less visible. Seeing those dates reinforce that the work now connects to something specific later on. So once those targets are defined, you've got them on your calendar, your wall planner. Planning should then become structured rather than reactive. So we like to prioritise our events, A, B or C. An A target, that is your absolute target race for the year. You might have one or two of them, but not too many than that. An A target is when freshness and specificity matter the most. A B target will support that A race. So that's preparation, testing new things, trying to get things right that will help you support that A race later on. Maybe it's just competitive exposure before that target. Now a C race, that's your practice. That's your midweek crit. You'll often race these through fatigue and sort of treat it as high quality training session. This hierarchy defines where that fitness must be expressed, where we can test it, and where it's acceptable to train through competition. Trying to be sharp for everything rarely works, and it often breaks a lot of riders down. Each attempt to peak requires a reduced load, more specificity, as part of our taper, Repeating that process too often interrupts, your actual gains, your accumulation, and it often leaves riders stuck between partial freshness and partial fitness, which is not a good place to be. At the macro level, planning works backwards from the main competition window. Within that sit the mesocycles: the base, build, peak, taper, recovery. So obviously your base develops aerobic capacity, resilience, build it, introduce more relevant intensity, and peak increases that race specificity or event demands with a reduction in volume. And then the taper manages that fatigue, so fitness can be expressed for the event. At the micro level, this becomes visible in the actual weekly structure. So that's your hard days, your easy days, your VO2 sessions, your fresh launch sessions, recovery. So that's all placed deliberately. If a B race sits at the end of a week, you might adjust your training. Okay. If it's a C race, you're more than likely just going to train normally as you would for the rest of the week, and just treat that as a training session. So the targets give the shape to that work. They stop training becoming a collection of reasonable sessions with no clear destination. So once you've got that all laid out, you can then actually work out when those mesocycles are going to be. And it can really, once you see that happening, you know what you're training for and what the purpose of that training is. So last season was a good reminder of all this. After a bit of time, I decided to get into running. I injured myself and I returned to cycling without a clear objective. Training happened, but it lacked that coherence. I did a few time trials just to put a number on my back, test how I was going. But then I saw an end of season road race and I set that as an A target. So therefore the preparation aligned, the session choice tightened, I started to manage my fatigue, all because I was building up to that one point. I did throw in a short heat training block for preparation. So the intention for this wasn't for the environment, but it was more physiological. So the race itself was cold and wet. It was an end of season road race. The thing about this race, the outcome was not guaranteed, okay? But once that direction and preparation, it all sort of coming together, it all makes sense. The target did not create that fitness, but it allowed for me to come to that start line knowing I was as prepared as I could be. Now that race was won from breakaway. So targets are not promises, they are tools. A, B, or C. Those targets create the direction and support that consistency. So set them early, make them visible, share them, review them, adjust when life interferes. Stick them there, you know what you're training for, you have that direction, you know what your objective is going to be. Build the plan the build, saddle up and ride. Thanks.